Welcome in, college football fans. It's time again for the first and long college football show. I'm your co host, Marcus. There's your other co host, Mason. Mason, how are you today? Ready to talk some football?
Yes, sir. I'm doing good, Maserati Marcus. Um, we got another week of college football. We know it's going to be exciting. We got 6 games on the slate for you all this evening, and I'm ready to break them down. We've got some good matchups, and it should be another entertaining weekend of college football as always. And I'm ready to break it down and get into it, man.
Yeah, in no way are these all of the games that are interesting this weekend because, of course, there's going to be games that are off the radar that are going to be really, really, really good. And there's going to be games that are just unexpectedly close. But what we're going to preview today is the UGA versus Florida, Oregon at Utah, Duke at Louisville, Tennessee at Kentucky, Oregon State at Arizona, and Oklahoma at Kansas. Um, so some of these have got some close point spreads here under a single digit point spreads. Got a couple double digits there, the cocktail party, and then the Oklahoma game. So uh, it looks like it's going to be a really entertaining college football weekend. So let's dive into it and let's go into the big boy, the 3:30 game, the cocktail party, a game that you and I have attended many times in person. And um, let me just tell everybody here, if you've never been to this, uh, this is a spectacle that you need to see, and you probably need to do it sooner rather than later because I don't know how much longer this game is going to be played in Jacksonville,
Mhm.
and it is a unique flavor of college football lore, and to be able to be there is to understand what this rivalry is all about. Um, that this is a border war. And oh, by the way, Georgia's starting quarterback, guess where he's from? Jacksonville, Florida, where this game's played. How about that? Um, and you can look back throughout the history of this game and you can see tons of Georgia quarterbacks who have been from the state of Florida and vice versa. Um, so it really is a field full of guys that have competed against each other in a lot of cases throughout middle school and high school. And all these guys know each other, man. And it can tend to be a bit of a nasty game. And I think a lot of people think of a rivalry game and they think close games. And usually, it seems to me like usually the better team in this rivalry beats the crap out of the other one pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, that's usually how this one goes. And hey, I've been in that stadium whenever Georgia's gotten beat by double digits, and I've been there whenever Georgia's beat them. I've been there before and been about 10 minutes late to my seat, and Georgia's already up 21 to nothing. Okay,
Yeah.
um, I think you probably remember that game.
Oh yeah.
I barely remember it. My God.
Vaguely. I barely remember walking into the stadium.
Oh, man, I
The
tell you
it is
what.
a tailgate, folks. It is definitely a tailgate, but, you mentioned how it seems to get very one-sided very quickly. Like,
Yeah.
it's split, it's 50-50. Momentum swings are huge in this game. You can get
Yep.
down quickly, and it is a look, this is a rivalry game. We're lucky to have a rivalry game this big in October. Most of those are reserved for November, but this is one of the best in the land and one of the best venues in the land. I'm torn as to whether or not it should be played in Jacksonville every single year. I'd like to see a home and neutral, home neutral. That'd be really fun for me, but that would take a lot of the lore out of it too. So um, I definitely enjoy my time in Jacksonville when we do get to go to these games.
Yeah, we had talked yesterday, and I was telling you, man, I wish we could be there this year, and we will be getting our way back there, because I'll be making sure that my kids understand that tradition of that game, and we've always talked about we're gonna as soon as our kids are old enough to, be able to be in an environment like that, and it be, not completely inappropriate, then we'll take them and make them understand what that rivalry really means because it does mean a lot to all the Georgia and Florida folks. And look, these hotels are booked up like a year in advance. Okay. Um, Everybody, please give us a like and a subscribe real quick. We're only 15 subscribers away from 100. Okay. And That's not a lot of subscribers, okay? There's a lot more people that watch these videos than 100 people. So, we just need you guys' help to get to 100 and then 500 and 1,000. We're gonna keep working at it. We're gonna keep bringing the content, and, we're gonna enjoy it together. So please do that for me, and, and we'll keep it going here. Um, Let me just kinda tell you what my thoughts are on this real quick. So, as the as I've looked at this game, I wanted to go back and I wanted to take a look at Florida in some of their games and see how they were gonna match up against the style that I feel like Georgia is going to be playing in this game. And Georgia seems has kind of converted over to a throw to open up the run type of approach, right? They're throwing the ball a lot more than they're running it. In the case of the Kentucky game, if you really take away, the time at the end of the game when they're just trying to run the clock, you're talking about they were throwing the ball, 2/3 of the time, right? And they're not always deep down the field. They're not always in the middle. Sometimes they're behind the line of scrimmage. But Georgia's using the passing game as an extension of the run game and to open up the actual run game, right? Um, so I wanted to go back on Florida's schedule and I wanted to see what team has Florida played this year that has got a good passing attack. Well, it's not Utah, right? It's not McNeese State. It's not Charlotte. Um, it's not Tennessee. Okay. It's not Kentucky. The best passing attack that this Florida Gators team has played so far this year is Vanderbilt. And when they played Vanderbilt, they gave up just about 300 yards passing,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I think this game is going to really depend on Jalen Kimber, who is a ex UGA guy, right? Who's transferred over to Florida. Um, and there's two other corners, and I my notebook got left at home, unfortunately. But it was Johnson, and there was another one on the other side that got tore up pretty good in that game against Vanderbilt. So how is the Florida secondary and these cornerbacks going to match up with this wide receiver group that I think is I don't think people understand the dudes that are in the Georgia's wide receiver room. Yeah, I don't think there's like a first round guy. I mean, obviously you had Brock Bowers, he's out, and we'll talk about that as Georgia moves on, at life without Brock Bowers for a little while, right? It's what Georgia has done pretty much every year they've won a championship. They've had to move on from somebody
Yeah.
and make it without them. So this isn't anything new for Georgia and Kirby Smart. They've recruited at a really high level. There's not going to be a tight end that's going to step up and be what a Brock Bowers is, but I think this is an opportunity for a lot of the guys to step up in their roles, and it be a collective effort amongst those wide receivers. Hopefully, we're going to see some more of McConkey. We're coming off of a bye week for Florida and Georgia, so I'm expecting this to be minus Brock Bowers, probably about the healthiest we've seen Georgia in a while. Um, so, uh, with all that being said, I think this really is going to depend on this Florida defense. How are they going to handle this passing attack? And um, I don't see it working out well for them. And I think Vegas agrees with the double digit point spread here. What's your outlook on this game, and how do you see this going down? And then kind of take us through the numbers of what you found, and um, we'll kind of give our takes on what we think the outcome will be against the spread and all that type of stuff.
Well, you mentioned the fact that they haven't faced a strong passing attack outside of, well, they really haven't faced a strong passing attack. The strongest
Yep.
they face is Vanderbilt.
Those
And
Commodores have got that air raid, baby.
yeah, but if you look at these numbers, that they could be a little bit misleading if you don't recognize the fact that they face mostly run first offenses. So when you look at their passing defense, they're 21st in the country. They're only averaging 187.6 yards per game given up. But if you were to cross reference that to the teams that they've played, they're not passing a lot. They're not getting, probably more than 200 yards passing per game. So you kind of have to add some perspective to some of these numbers, and also I'll say this: these numbers are heavily one sided, right? Georgia leads in, I think, every category. There's what red zone conversion. Okay. Florida's got them in that, I guess. But at the end of the day, this is a rivalry game. And a lot of these numbers are, um, you can kind of throw out the door because I think this is a big game. There's a lot of emotions in it. And folks, Georgia is going to get beat at some point. They've won like what 29 games in a row or something crazy. They're going to get beat at some point. I'm not saying it happens this weekend, but eventually it's going to happen, and they're going to take a regular season loss eventually. I know that hasn't happened in a while, but
It's crazy to be saying those words because we've been Georgia fans a long time, and for us to be sitting here saying Georgia is eventually going to lose a regular season game, like I, that just wouldn't have even computed with me a few years ago. But that is where this Georgia squad has gotten to at this point, and that's where the expectations are. And it to this day it blows my mind, and it will forever blow my mind.
right. So but I mean, when you go by the numbers, um, Georgia's going to pass the ball. They could run the ball if they want to. They can be multiple. I don't. I guess my question in this game is, what does Georgia want to do? Are they going to run the ball? Kentucky gave you the blueprint for that. We know that this team, Florida can be had if you want to run the ball. So do they say, hey, no Brock Bowers? Um, so let's try to rush the ball a little bit better, see if we can get better in that area. Or did they say, hey, here's an opportunity to get some wide receivers the ball that may get overshadowed by the Avenger number 19 himself, Brock Bowers? I hope it's the latter. It makes for a more fun offense, to see the kind of the high flying stuff, and of course, look, we're Georgia fans. We love nothing more than to run the score up on Florida. We've like Mark said, we've been to that game plenty of times. We've been on the opposite end of that. Back
Yep.
in Kirby's first year, it was pretty bad coming out of that stadium. So anytime we get a chance to go win big in that game, I love to see it. It is always fun, and every other week. I mean, look, I'm a college football fan first and foremost. I love to see Florida do well. We want them to win every game outside of Georgia, and I know whatever team you're a fan of, you've got your rivals. That's why we love this sport, and we're not going to shy away from our fanhood on this show. And we can cheer the I guess cheer the Florida Gators on some other day, but it doesn't happen on this Saturday, not the last
No,
Saturday
sir.
in October. So but yeah, so for my prediction on this game, um you see the over under is set at 47. I think that's way too low. I think Georgia could get there on their own, honestly, in this game. And but it goes back to, are they going to want to run the ball? If they want to run the ball all game, I mean, this could be a 36-17 game, or something like that, which would still be a cover. But if they want to pass the ball, I mean, Georgia could score 50. I think, on Florida this week. And then Georgia's a 14.5 point favorite. If you could find this at 14, I'd say take it. I think that hook adds a little seed of doubt. But if I were to pick one way or another, I would pick Georgia to cover this. I think Florida's got some momentum right now, but Georgia is the superior team, and I think that they're going to show up in Jacksonville ready to play. And I think this is going to be kind of the Carson Beck show coming out. He doesn't have that check down to Bowers. They're not going to be able to go to him. And, in the pass and attack, it's going to be on him. And I think that what Kirby is going to want to do in this game is continue to build that confidence with Carson Beck, give him another 300 plus passing yard game under his belt in his own backyard. His first time playing in the stadium since he was 11. He lost that game. I don't know that matters, but he's going to want to play. He's going to want to come out and play. And I'm sure that the Georgia football team is going to want nothing more than to go out there behind their quarterback and help him have a good outing. So give me Georgia big in this game, and I think that the over will hit as well.
Yeah. So here, just for the sake of the Florida fans, I want to, because this is a college football community, and we are Georgia fans, but um, I want to kind of talk about, you know, I want to kind of talk about what the way to victory for Florida would be in this game. And as a Georgia fan, you can take this to the bank. This is how you've got to beat Georgia this year specifically. Florida's offensive line has got to play out of their mind. They got to play out of their stinking mind. And there's no star Jalen Carter in the middle of this Georgia defense, right? There's no there's nobody to absorb 2 blocks and keep blocks off of the second level linebackers and things like that. Offensive line has got to go man up, and then they gotta get to the second level, and they gotta run the football, and they cannot let Carson Beck have a ton of possessions in this game. If Georgia has like 4, 4 or 5 possessions a quarter, it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good for Florida. It's gonna get ugly. Florida has to sustain drives, move the chains on offense. That is the way to beat, I think, and it's easier said than done because this Georgia defense, while it's not what it was the last 2 years, it's really hard to line up and run the ball against them. But the way Florida throws the ball behind the line of scrimmage, I think is the way that you have to handle this Georgia team. They have speed. You've got to get the ball to the outside quickly. And Florida has done that a lot this year. Lots of Grand Mertz completions were a yard, beyond the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage and then picked up yards that way. That's the way that Florida's done it this year. Gonna have to So I include that in the run game. That's an extension of the run game. It's gonna come up as receiving yards, but we know what that is. And I think if Florida can do that, um, and have a good strategy to do that and keep Georgia guessing. Hit with play action every once in a while. You're going to have to hit on the play action, though. You can't just throw and expect Georgia to respect it. You're going to have to hit 1 or 2 before Georgia's going to respect it. But if you can do that, you will open up this Georgia defense a little bit, and it's going to be game on.
Mhm.
Defensively, Florida's got to get a couple turnovers. Florida gets 2 turnovers in this game, and they rush the ball for over 150 yards. They'll win this game. They can win this game. It's very possible, or definitely cover the spread in that case, 100%. Now, on the other hand of that, we talked about this earlier this year when we came up with a couple rules earlier this year, and we'll move on to this next game. Tennessee has to run the ball for 160 yards a game to win. Florida, if they have 2 turnovers, they're gonna lose. They have to play efficient football. This team doesn't have wiggle room. They don't have deep strike capability. They have 1 wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, that is very dangerous, mind you, but there's only 1 guy like that to worry about on this wide receiver core. So, the keys to Florida's victory, the run game, the extension of the run game, right? Spreading Georgia out. You're not gonna be able to run into the teeth of this Georgia defense, I don't think. I don't think that line's this good. The offensive line has gotta play out of their mind, and you've gotta get a couple turnovers. That's how Florida wins this game right here, and that's a pretty tough recipe to put together, I think. But look, this is the Georgia-Florida game. Turnovers are a big deal in this one. Rarely does somebody lose the turnover battle and win this game. Let's move on. And I'll give you my pick. I'm taking I'm taking Florida plus 14.5, but I'm taking Georgia to win. The more I think about s this is a lot of points, and I think Florida probably can have some success sustaining drives and earning some time of possession and keeping that Georgia offense off the field some. Give me the plus 14.5. I think Georgia wins by 10 or 13 or 14. But I'm telling you right now, Florida turns the ball over or they can't sustain drives, Georgia will whoop that ass. I'm telling you right now. All right, let's move on. Oregon at Utah. Oregon goes on the road And Utah is a pretty loud place to play, right? This is not this schedule ain't for the faint of heart. They've gone to Washington and now they're going to Utah. Now, if you look statistically, Mason's going to go through the numbers here shortly, but Oregon has been very good defensively against the run. Really, I guess pretty much everything, but specifically the run. They've been good against it, but faced they haven't faced a physical offensive line and run game like this Utah team, and I think that's kind of where this line comes from. And not to mention that it is on the road, but with all that being said, I don't like I don't like this Utah team in this spot. I think this number is wrong here. I think it should be more around like 9, right? I think it should be
Yeah.
more like Oregon -9, something to that effect. Um, Utah has not been great against the pass, and and I say not great. I mean they've been okay. They've been okay, but it makes me wonder sometimes. Is it that teams have to pass because they know they can't run the ball against Utah, because Utah's rush defense is very, very good. So, Oregon is definitely gonna have to figure out if they're going to, you know, achieve covering the spread. Oregon is gonna have to figure out a way to move people and run the ball some, and, I think that will open up the pass game, but if Bo Nix tries to rush it and force it, this Utah defense will make you pay, man. They'll make you pay, and it was an emotional game that Utah was in last week that also kinda makes me wanna fade them a little bit.
Hmm.
Very emotional and a lot of celebration going on, with that game, and they beat USC again, whom they own, right? They just flat out own them, and there's just one's got a Heisman winner and one's got a pig farmer, right? Um,
That's right.
that's what, Kyle Whittingham said, so got a lot of respect for Kyle Whittingham. I think this is a really bad spot for Utah here, and I like Oregon by 9 or 10. Give me Oregon in the, -6.5. What say you? And show us them numbers.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. I think that 6.5 is a very bettable number. Um, and I think that a lot of people are probably pretty high on Utah after seeing them beat USC, and maybe that's where Vegas gets this number. Um, but coming off of the emotional win last week, um, Kyle Whittingham has done it time and time again. And I mean, the USC hasn't beaten Utah this decade, so that's kind of telling you something there. But it was an emotional win. They don't have their starting quarterback. Bryson Barnes is a baller. Don't get me wrong, but I think that it's kind of come back to earth time for the pig farmer. And I think that he's going to be met with a really tough Oregon defense. The
Yeah.
numbers definitely prove that, but there is a path for them to win, and it's staying the course, playing that hard nosed football, being physical up front. I think that they do match up pretty well with Oregon up front, and that's a little bit of a stalemate. So in that category, I guess it could go either way, but I think that where Oregon has a clear advantage is in the passing attack. Bo Nix has been playing really well. Even against Washington, I mean, gosh, he played a heck of a game, and they just barely lost. They've got a real weapon in Tony Franklin, and I think he's going to have a pretty good game this week as well. And it's going to come down to the offensive line, defensive line, and up front in the trenches as to how much Oregon wins by. But I do think that they win this game. I'm with you, Mark. I think if the over under was set at 9, I'd be a little bit more apprehensive
Yeah.
on this. But I don't like the over under at all at 48. I think that's kind of a stiff number. So I'd steer away from that, but I do think Oregon's going to be able to cover this pretty handedly. But this is a Oregon can be beat by Utah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they don't have a chance here. I just think that Oregon is a more complete team, and they are coming off of a pretty, I guess, a pretty tough win last week. But they didn't win by as much as Vegas thought that they would. But I think that they're ready to come
Yeah.
back out, and this is a statement game for them. This is an opportunity to beat the team that just beat USC, to beat the team that's won the Pac-12 the past 2 years in a row, and to
Yeah.
show that Oregon has taken a step that and created a gap between their program and Utah's program. I think that that's what I'm seeing, at least in Oregon, and I think that they're going to go out there and prove that this Saturday.
Yeah, this is a gut check Saturday for Oregon. Um, I this is the most physical team that they will have played,
Mm-hmm.
along the lines of scrimmage, in my opinion, as far as defensively and offensively. Um, so yeah, I'm interested to see how Oregon responds to that. And like I said, I think if Bo Nix tries to rush this thing and tries to go into the teeth of this defense, um, you know, without being patient and allowing the game to come to him, I think it could be trouble. A couple of turnovers here in this game for Utah could definitely neutralize what I think is about a 10-point, 9-point, spread in my mind. Um, and I think a key to the game for Utah to be able to, get within the 6.5 point number or even get the win here is getting a couple of turnovers on defense, which they've done very well this year. They're plus what 6 or 8 or whatever in the turnover margin there. But you're going to have to get in the passing game involved some, and that's been an issue for Utah. But maybe there's been some new life bred into this team, and maybe this team has gotten some closure from the whole Cam Rising situation. Now that they know he's not coming back, maybe it's kind of like I described in the Georgia game where Georgia's not going to be able to rely on Brock Bowers. Other people are going to have to step up on this team, and maybe this is a chance for Utah to take some ownership. Sione Vaki looked really, really good last week against USC, and but we've been saying it all year. If you got a troubled offense, the 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 doctor orders you a prescription of USC defense to play against, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's it makes you feel all better, right? But with that being said, Vaggie is very talented,
Yeah.
and um, this isn't, I wouldn't say a critically acclaimed and loved uh, pass defense for Oregon at this point. I don't think it's locked down necessarily, um, especially for somebody like Vaki, who, hey, somebody that's on their game and Bryson Barnes comes out and he's on fire, it could spell trouble for Oregon. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, I could see a point where Utah gets up early in this, and then Bo Nix starts to press, and it's trouble, right? So I'm trusting the fact that Bo Nix is a veteran quarterback, that he's not going to do that, and that's what I'm banking on here. But I think that's kind of some keys to victory for Utah if they want to pull this upset.
Totally agree.
Let's go ahead
I
and
can't
move
believe I
on
didn't
to the
didn't
next
mention
one here.
Sione Vaki, because I think he's a huge part of this game and plays both sides of the ball for anybody not paying attention. This guy's a
Yeah,
safety and a receiver, and one heck of an athlete, and he's got to get involved in the offense if Utah's going to stand a chance.
yeah. It'd be really cool if he had an interception and a touchdown in the game. That'd be really neat.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
I, I'd like to. I should throw a little something on that. I had a funny feeling. I should throw
Yeah.
something on that. Maybe I'll do that. Let's go on to this next one, man. Duke at Louisville. So we saw Riley Leonard. Look, Riley Leonard for some reason is always on TV whenever me and my wife watch college football together. I don't know why. Like, even if it was just for a few minutes this past weekend, but she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's Leonard." I said, "Yeah, he's back." He came back early from that ankle injury that he had, and so we were watching him in the Florida State game, and then we were watching whenever he hurt his ankle against Notre Dame. We were watching it laying in the bed, and we both felt terrible for him. I mean, we were just like, man, dadgummit, we were enjoying watching him. And so then we're watching him together again, and lo and behold, he gets the face mask, pulled, and his foot kind of gets planted in the ground, and man, he twists that dang thing again. And so I guess me and my wife watching Riley Leonard is like the kiss of death for him. And I'm gonna do my best to just shield my eyes. Maybe I can like watch through my fingers or something, or or look over somebody's shoulder at their phone or something at this one. But um, I think this is trouble for Louisville, my friend.
Hmm.
Um, I think this is trouble, and I'm gonna tell you why. We're gonna look at the numbers, and I don't know all the numbers by heart for Louisville, but this is my feel on this game. I think Duke is just a damn good football team, man.
Yeah.
I know they just got beat by Florida State by what, 18 or whatever, but man, Duke had that game. I'm telling you right now, they let that one slip away, and I don't think this is a team that had such high expectations that they let one slip away or a couple games slip away this year, and they're just gonna phone it in. This is still a really great season for Duke. They're still in this thing for the ACC. They got everything to play for here. And if you're going to give me 4 points, Duke, then I'm going to take them. And I think Duke is able to continue to establish the run game. They ran for over 200 yards last week. I think they'll do that again. And I think if they can hit the 250-yard mark, I think that'll be the kiss of death for this Louisville birds with teeth. Um, I think Louisville is slightly fraudulent, and part of the reason everybody liked Louisville so much this year in the preseason, their number one thing that they went to, it wasn't anything about Louisville, it was about their schedule. Well, they avoid this opponent, they avoid this opponent. Well, I don't think anybody was counting on Duke being as good as what they are, and I think that I still don't think people understand. I really don't. I don't think people. I don't think the general public understands that Duke has a good football team. Like, and I'm not saying Louisville's bad by any means. Jack Plummer's done his thing. Uh, that Louisville had a big win, obviously earlier this year, but then they go on the road and they lose to Pitt. So this team has shown some serious deficiencies in what I think is kind of a paper tiger in Louisville. Um, so give me Duke and give me those points and give me your take on this.
Well, um, I kind of want to go the other way with this. Personally, I think that
How dare
Louisville's in
you?
a I think that Louisville's in a really good position, and they're benefiting a lot from Duke coming off of the loss. Um, uh, or coming off of the loss from, Florida State, two back-to-back road games for Duke, in hostile environments. It's a really tough schedule for Duke, realistically. This has not been easy. I feel like Duke's been in the spotlight, every other game this week, and we don't know what to expect um, from Riley Leonard. Um, if he's playing, I'm sure he's not rushing the football, which is what he does best. He's a very athletic quarterback. Um, I don't know. I don't know what their offense is going to do. I know that Louisville is built to stop the run. They're only allowing just over 3 yards per attempt, which is good for 18th in the country. They're kind of middle of the pack in their passing defense, but Duke doesn't do a very good job of passing the football. And the same can be said for Louisville going against Duke. Louisville is kind of a pass first team. They're pretty balanced, really, but they definitely are better at passing the football. And Duke does a really good job of shutting down the pass, only allowing less than 180 yards per game in the passing attack. So you definitely have good on good on both sides of the ball in both aspects. So from that sense, it should be a pretty even matchup. And then you factor in the fact that this is a Louisville home game and the emotional loss that Duke just took last week. How do they rebound? This is a very scrappy team. I think that Mike Elko has built an outstanding culture in Duke for Duke's by Duke standards, especially. He's a hell of a coach. I think he's done one of the best jobs in the country. And if he's able to win this game, I think it only adds to it. But I think it's a really tough spot for Duke. So give me Louisville to win this game. I think that they probably win by 3. So I could see Duke covering, but I think that Louisville wins the game, and also give me the under 46.5. I want to know how many times the unders hit in a Duke game, because I'm sure it's above 50% this season, and I think it'll be the same this week. So I honestly like the under more than I do picking Duke in the points, but give me Duke to cover, Louisville to win this game, and that's my pick for this game.
Duke to cover, Louisville to win. I just worry about Jack Plummer in this one. I think I don't know. I like that Duke secondary. We're
Yeah.
gonna see. That's one I'm gonna really keep my eye on. I'm interested to see uh, what the line does this week. 4 is a weird number, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of an odd number. I don't know. I guess it's not. Um, Tennessee at Kentucky. I think this is a pretty interesting matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Tennessee is heartbroken, and I wonder about the attitude of this team right now a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I'm worried about their psyche. Um, as did you not to change the subject, but did you hear what Dabo said about? They asked about the psych having a psych doctor on staff
No, I didn't see that
for
one.
for Clemson. My goodness gracious, he had to come out and apologize for it. And I'm not trying to get off on a Clemson thing here, but real quick, this is pretty funny. So, a reporter asked him, said, after a loss like that, does Clemson have, people to talk to, like sports medicine, mental focus type doctors and things like that? And he said, yeah. Yeah, we sure do. We have all kinds of stuff like that, and they're probably on suicide watch right now.
Wow.
No kidding, dude. He said it,
Read the
and
room, dude.
yeah, man. And so he had to come out yesterday or the day before, and the reporter's like, "Do you want to add anything to that?" And he said, "Yeah, I would like to add something. I'm really sorry, because that was a really poor attempt at humor, and blah blah blah." So, um, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so I was just thinking. Speaking of psych doctors and the psyche of a team, um, Tennessee Tennessee season is on life support. Honestly, to attain the goals that they felt like they could attain this year, um, this is a big game, and it's on the road, and Kentucky is going to be a hostile environment for this game right here.
Yeah.
Um, Kentucky's run game has been what's been able to push them through this year, and is really the calling card for a Mark Stoops team is leaning on the offensive line and rushing the football and stopping the run. So I don't know what the over under is on this yet, but I think this is going to be a pretty low scoring game here. I don't see I don't see either team getting over like 24 points in this game. I really don't. I think both teams are going to be really content to try to run the football and play field position. And I think that's the style of game it's going to be right here. Neither one of these quarterbacks is worth a damn, man. Leary has been I mean, he's been extremely disappointing for Tennessee this year. I think I can speak for all the Kentucky fans when I say that I've been really, really disappointed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they think differently. Let me know in the comment section what you think, because now I did have some Kentucky fans arguing that he was better than Carson Beck before Carson Beck lit them on fire. Um, so I don't hear anybody saying that anymore. But Leary's been pretty pitiful, and Kentucky's been pretty pitiful throwing the football around. And I don't think there's really a wide receiver to go to in this game. So I think Tennessee's got the best wide receiving playmaker in this game in Squirrel White.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's going to depend on what what Milton shows up. Is it the Milton that showed up in the first quarter of the Alabama game? or is it the one that showed up in the second half, right?
Yeah.
And which team is going to be able to establish a run game? Alabama ran for about 40 on Tennessee last week, and I consider this Kentucky team to be a better running football team than Alabama. So does that mean 200 yards for Alabama or for Kentucky? Because if it does, then I think that means a win for Kentucky.
Yeah.
Personally, whichever team hits 200 rushing yards in this game is winning. That's kind of like the what I'm looking at in this matchup. What say you on this one, and take us through the numbers and what you think?
Yeah, man, I don't know that we've seen since we've been doing our previews. I don't know that we've seen a more even matchup. And I don't know if people realize just how similar these teams are. Um,
Uh, yeah,
you know, you look at Kentucky's number and their passing defense. Things got a little out of hand against Georgia. But Tennessee hasn't faced Georgia. They faced Alabama, but Alabama doesn't throw the ball like Georgia does. So when you look at Kentucky's pass defense, I'm not saying Georgia, knocked them down 50 slots or anything like that, but they put a pretty hefty number on Kentucky, and that also factors into their scoring defense. So, when you factor in strength of schedule, I think these two teams are a little bit more similar than even the numbers would suggest here. And you know, that being said, you've got Kentucky at home here, and Tennessee coming off of a tough loss, kind of similar to the Louisville and Duke sort of emotional aspect, at least, of the game. The home team has kind of not really had a whole lot going on, not had as much going on as the visitors. So maybe that gives that home team the slight edge. I think that this game is going to be very close. Look, these teams are very similar. They are, from a power rating perspective, I think that they're like on a neutral field. I would have them closer to like on a neutral field, maybe like 3 points for Tennessee or something like that. But hey, I think that this is going to be a really close game. You could go either way with this. I like what you mentioned in the under. It's the over under set at 51.5. I think that'd be the smarter play to play the under. These are two really good defenses and two offenses that like to run the football. So very very similarly built, which leads to a lower scoring game, a lower possession game, a lot of field goals, a lot of punting and playing field position. I think that that's the kind of game that we're looking at. And like a lot of games, whoever controls the football and doesn't turn the ball over is probably going to win this game. And I think that's what sort of game we're looking at this week between Tennessee and Kentucky. Look, to me, it's kind of a pick 'em. I'm going to go with the home team. I think that if you're looking for some plus money and you want to play the money line, I don't know what that number is right now, but I think that'd be a pretty good one to pick right now. Again, going back to the emotional loss from Alabama that the Vols face and Kentucky being the home team, I think that's probably the way that I would go with this one.
yeah. Well, eh, I think part of the problem that Kentucky had, the more I've had to sit and think about it and watch the highlights and condensed version of the game and things. Kentucky had a hard time with Georgia because there was so many distractions going on the field. There was Brock Bowers over here, there was Rosemary Jackson over here, then you had McConkey coming in once every 10 plays and catching, a first down. Just Arian Smith, you got to worry about him getting past you, although he can't catch the ball anymore. Um, you know, I don't think Tennessee's got that. I don't know if there's a lot of distractions in this game, and furthermore, you're not near as worried about Joe Milton hitting them. So, with all that being said, and this being, I think, going to be a really close football game, Vegas looks like what they're predicting this one to be about 27-24. That would be what, 51, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Something like that.
I
Yeah.
I like Kentucky plus the points here. Give me the plus 3.5. Give me Kentucky in
Yeah.
that. Um, I really like them in the home situation here. Typically, being at home is worth 1.5 to 2. So really, what Vegas is giving you a line is minus 5.5.
Yeah.
I, you know what I mean? I'm taking the home team here. There's 0% chance that I think Tennessee is going to win by 5 or 5.5. You know what I'm saying? Or 6 points. I
Yeah.
just I can't see it happening, man. This ain't your grandfather's Tennessee team, and it ain't last year's Tennessee team. That's for sure. And if it was, Tennessee beat the ever living bejesus out of Kentucky, and they're
Yeah,
not
they
going to do
would.
that. You know, last year's Tennessee team would absolutely dismantle this Kentucky team, but that's
Especially if
not.
they had this defense, this year's defense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, last year's Tennessee offense with this year's Tennessee defense, they'd have
They
been in
would
the
have,
playoff last year
well, yeah, or
instead
they
of
would have
Ohio
beat
State.
Alabama last week, you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. Um, I think keys to victory for Tennessee in this game. Like I said, I think you need 200 yards rushing. The the key for Tennessee is always 160 yards rushing. You can that's like a watermark for this team, right? That's the minimum they can rush for and win. It's like science, okay? Don't be a fool. Trust your science, okay? But I say science because it's basically proven. Whichever team hits 200 rushing yards in this game, they're going to win this game. Both teams hit 200 yards rushing, we're in for a damn slobber knocker, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Oregon State at Arizona. Weird line, right? Oregon State
Yeah.
minus 3.5. Arizona has found themselves in games that everybody felt like they had no business being in this year. Um, Namely USC, the USC game that was earlier this year. Um, this is a decently well-rounded Arizona football team. They play complementary football, and they're pretty good against the run, as we discussed before this video started. But Oregon State is good at running the football. And I think Oregon State has got one of the best rush blocking offensive lines in the game right now. They fire off, they hit you, and they are massive. It's like a bunch of Kenmore refrigerators firing off and smacking you. I mean, they're just huge. Um, I don't think Arizona is going to be able to stand up physically to this Oregon State team, but they've been good against the run. What can I say? But then again, Arizona also gave up 31 points to Mississippi State earlier this year. Now, I think the team has grown a lot since then, but 31 points to Mississippi State. Let me tell you something. Mississippi State scored 7 points last week against Arkansas. Okay. So that's not looking good. The transitive property there not looking good for Arizona. Um, I'm about to pull up their schedule because I wanna for everybody, I want to see who all they've played and let's talk about some of these scores because that can kind of tell us some things. So they started the year off Northern Arizona 38-3 they won. Lost to Mississippi State in overtime 31-24. They beat UTEP 31-10. Beat Stanford 21-20, beat them by 1 point. Lost to Washington 31-24. There's one of those games I was talking about. They found themselves in. They shouldn't have been in. Lost to USC in overtime 43-41, 2-point conversion situation. And they beat the ever living bejesus out of Washington State.
Yeah.
That's the last thing that we saw from them on October 14th as they went into a bye week. And now they're back to face Oregon State. So I think that there is a consensus among bettors that Arizona is a team that's going to spoil somebody's time eventually. And I'm not so sure this is the spot right here. I want to go more into the numbers and I'll give you my pick. So why don't you take us through those numbers and tell us kind of what your line of thinking is in this game and what's the keys to victory for these teams?
Yeah. You know, when you talk about Arizona, you got to realize that this is a team that's been doing more as of late than they started the season. Mark just went through their schedule and kind of what they've done this year. Um, but when I look at Arizona, I look at a team that's on defense. They're really good at stopping the run. Um, Defense typically is week to week pretty consistent. Um, so when they're paired with a strong rushing offense, let's see how that holds up. I'll just say that. Now, of all the teams that you mentioned, I don't think one of them is a really strong rushing football team. Not as strong as Oregon State. So I kind of expect that rushing defense number, that ranking to creep up a little bit, and the 3.04 yards per attempt to creep up to maybe like a 3.4 or something like that after this game. I do think that Oregon State's going to have they're going to be effective running the football, and that really they've got the opportunity to pass against Arizona, as well as Arizona's averaging 236.9 yards per game given up through the air, and DJU has had a pretty successful season so far by his standards, throwing the football, and so. I think that Oregon State, if they can establish that run game, and then start hitting on some play action and going over the top, they should have the opportunity to do that. And that will be the key to them winning the game. On the opposite side of the football, you've got Arizona, and they're going to have to find some ways to go deep. They got to find Coleman open. They got to find Cowing open, who I think is a really good wide receiver for Arizona. And if that happens, if they're able to get some plays at home, it's a night game. This is the Pac-12 at dark football game. This is the one that you're going to be locked away locked away in your man cave at night, blinds shut. um you're in your pajamas watching this game with a cup of coffee, trying to stay up to get it all in, because I do think it is going to be a good game. I think Vegas knows what they're doing with this line. A lot of people are probably going to be looking to put money on Oregon State in this one. But Arizona is a tough team, and this could be the game that they finally get over the hump and win. It's going to take some turnovers. It's going to take some bounce of ball going their way. But they're certainly talented enough to do it. And I would look to see Cowing get like 12 catches or something like that for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that would be a way that Arizona could win this game. But outside of that, the Wildcats are pretty good offensively, and they've got some weapons that they can find some yards on the ground, and they play balanced football. Both of these teams do, and that's why it should be a pretty close game. But I do think that Oregon State has been a little bit too good. So for me, I'm going to go with Oregon State to win and cover this game. I'm staying away from the over/under. This could be one of those Pac-12 specials where 80 points are scored. Like, you really don't know. It could end up being a 40-44 game. If you really like that, maybe go ahead and bet the over. But I would warrant against that, as these are two pretty good defenses. So that definitely gives me some pause.
Yeah, I like the under. As I look at it right this second, I'm gonna kind of look more at it as the week goes on, and that kind of reminds me to remind you all to tune in on Friday night at 8 p.m. We've got our it's like our best bets show of the week, but we call it Between the Lines because it's a nice play on words. You get it, right? Um,
Yeah, I get
Between
it.
the Lines is it could be on the football field, the Vegas lines. You got to read between the lines. Get it, get it, get it. Okay. That's at 8 p.m. on Fridays. That's whenever we've had a chance to really comb through these numbers, let the numbers settle. Some of them need to settle. Some of them you want to settle before you make your bet. You want to be a good better. You want to be a smart better. And we want to help you do that. So tune in on Friday. I think if Arizona, the kind of a key to victory here, you've got to it all starts with the run game. You have to be able to run the football, and you gotta be able to stop the run. That's what it's gonna take to win this football game because Oregon State, the run game is the straw that stirs the drink. DJU is rendered useless without a run game that is proper, okay? And I'm not saying that Arizona can stop Oregon State and stone them. I'm not saying that. But if they can limit them, that's going to really affect the deep shots and the play action that DJU and this Oregon State team and Jonathan Smith like to play. That's what they do. They run, they run, they run, play action, long pass. Okay. Um, so that's going to be, I think, kind of a point of contention in this game, and where the tables could turn if Arizona can put their best foot forward in this game. Let's move on to our last big matchup of the week. This is one that we added on, and we wanted to talk about specifically just because we thought it was interesting. Um, Oklahoma is a 10-point favorite at Kansas this weekend. I actually, I really like Oklahoma minus 10 here. Uh, we don't even know, though, if Kansas quarterback is going to even be playing the starting quarterback. It may be Jason Bean again,
Yeah.
but this is a good offense. I think that's where this number stems from. Kansas got a really good offense, but their defense is very, very questionable to me. And Oklahoma's defense has been a benefactor of a lot of turnovers this year, and I think they're going to have a chance to get some more this weekend as Kansas is going to be playing in wounded animal mode at this point, and uh, I think they're going to be willing to take some risks in this game at home to try and take down the Oklahoma Sooners in this one. But I just think Oklahoma's too strong here, man. Uh, Kansas has got to be able to limit the run. Guess what? Kansas cannot limit the run. They can't.
Yeah.
And if Oklahoma can run the football, it's lights out in this game because if they can run it, they can throw it. And Dylan Gabriel can do both himself. So, not necessarily going to take a running back to do so. Oklahoma does have a deficiency at running back. You got majors in there, but I don't think it's like a big platoon of running backs that they trust to put in this game. So I suspect Dylan Gabriel will be toting the rock in this one when need be, with some help from majors. And if Oklahoma can run the ball successfully for about 150 to 175 yards in this game, I think it could be a blowout. Give me Oklahoma minus 10. I like them by 17 in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. When you look at what Oklahoma has been able to do this year, it's been quite the turnaround. It's been what Oklahoma fans were looking for when Venables was hired as head coach. Defensive guy, and it's finally matching up with his resume and kind of his identity. And I say finally, it's only his second season, for Christ's sake. I mean, nobody really goes out there and lights the world on fire their first year, unless you're like Sonny Dykes or something. Uh, but
Yeah.
I agree. This number was, I think it opened up at 10.5 points, and it's come down a little bit, believe it or not. Um, and I, looking at Kansas, I feel like they were really hot early on, and
Those
the
numbers are
uncertain.
tough to look at, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I think the uncertainty at quarterback has caused a little bit of you know a little bit of a setback, I guess, for the offense for Kansas, and they're kind of wishy-washy on their quarterbacks, and that in practice, which is where players go to get better, right? That has to have an effect. When you
Mhm.
don't have that consistency, you're not able to build that chemistry between the not only the quarterback and the wide receivers, but also just the quarterback with the entire offense who's running the system. Um, that's got to have some effect. If Jalen Daniels comes in and plays this game, right, I think he does give them the best opportunity to win. That's why he's the starting quarterback. However, how many points is that going to be worth? Maybe 4 points.
Yeah. was gonna say an extra field goal
And
maybe.
right. So when you factor that in, if we have Oklahoma at minus 17, well, maybe that's maybe with Jason Bean, it's minus 14. So I still like Oklahoma to cover in this game. I think it's a bad matchup for Kansas. Um, Kansas wants to run the football, and Oklahoma's not having any of that. They
Yeah.
get after the quarterback. They're second in the country in tackles for a loss. They've got 65
Mhm.
on the year. They're getting in the backfield, not only sacking the quarterback, but they're stopping those run plays before they even meet the line of scrimmage. They are wreaking havoc in the backfield. It's causing fumbles in the backfield. So their turnover margin you see is at plus 10. That's good for, I believe, second in the country, if I remember correctly. They're very disruptive, and they're dogs on defense. They're fun to watch. And then offensively, I mean, Dylan Gabriel had a coming out party a couple weeks ago in the Red River Shootout, and didn't look so hot last week against UCF. They had a little bit of
Yeah.
a game plan for him. I think that's fair to say, but he's still a Heisman contending type of quarterback. He's still one of the best in football right now, and he's got some of the most experience in football. And if he wants to, hey, he might go for 100 yards on the ground this game against Kansas. I don't think they're going to ask him to do that, but if he wants to, I think that opportunity will be there as Kansas has been getting gashed as of lately on the ground. So but nonetheless, I've got Oklahoma to cover. I think minus 10 is just not enough points. Um, our Jayhawks are wounded. They've got a
Mhm.
wounded wing, and they're having issues getting up off the ground now. But hey, if they do make it a close game, we'll be here to kind of cheer them on. But I just don't see it. I think that Oklahoma's got too much firepower. They got too much going for them. I think that this is going to end up being a 3-score game when it's all said and done. That being said, I also like the underplay. This over unders at 65.5. Again, going back to that defense for Oklahoma, I think they're going to be able to slow Kansas down a good bit and keep this kind of a low scoring game for Kansas at least, and then kind of winning big for Oklahoma. So I think my final like score prediction would probably be something like Oklahoma 40 and Kansas 21, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I could see 34-17, something around to that effect. I think keys to victory in this game for Kansas is you've got to limit the run plays from Dylan Gabriel, right? Dylan Gabriel does a really good job at keeping this offense for Oklahoma on schedule. That is where this team, I feel like, is in his experience is very key. Um, when they get behind the chains, I think is when they're going to struggle. So, with that being said, Kansas has got to contain him. They're going to have to spy him and trust their secondary to be able to cover while they, you know, use one of the men of their 11 defenders to make sure that Dylan Gabriel is not escaping the pocket and causing trouble and causing third and short situations because this Oklahoma team has been good on third down. Um, they have not allowed a lot of tackles for loss. So Kansas has got to change that trend if they look to win this game. Jalen Daniels has got to play, first of all, I think, if Kansas wants to win this game. They've got to limit Oklahoma's run game and cause Dylan Gabriel to be in obvious passing downs with more than 8 yards to go. That is a big deal in this game. If Kansas can do that, they're going to get enough possessions to where they can score points and get this game a lot closer. Um, if Oklahoma continues to give Kansas opportunities with the football in their hand, Kansas will eventually make them pay because it is a good offense, and that defense will get worn down. That's part of this Lance Leipold system that he's got going at Kansas, and what has rejuvenated really the state of Kansas football program. So, with that being said, I think they probably need to get a couple of turnovers as well to get that done. But got to limit the run. get them in obvious passing downs, and get a couple of turnovers off of that, and then I think we'll have us a ball game here. Uh, but I don't see it going that way. Give me Oklahoma -10. I like them by, I really like them by 14 or 17 this week. Um, that is the last game that we had to talk about. Um, you know, I don't have really anything else other than there's some Michigan news I think that's going to be breaking, um, probably in the next few days, and I think we'll have a little bit to talk about. But right now, we don't really have any of the facts, just to be honest. So not really going to comment on that. The NCAA is not going to do anything till 2024. We'll talk about it before then, but what right now I don't think it's really important right now, honestly. Um,
Too
I
much
I
good
think
football to talk about right now.
there's too much good football to talk about for me to be worried about anything to do with conference realignment. Um, some $50,000 a year assistant going to watch other teams play and stuff and film something that literally anybody in the stadium could film and send to their favorite team. Um, you know, furthermore, why does the NCAA not have microphones in the helmets yet? Why? There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it. Why are we sending in signs from the sideline? Put
Yeah.
it through their helmet, dude. What are we doing? So anyway, I'm sure we're gonna get to that news topic at some point. But for right now, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Week 9 preview and prediction show. We're looking forward to a great Week 9. As I said earlier, please tune in Friday. We've got our Between the Lines segment that's coming up, and your boy here went undefeated last week. So if you want to come make some money with me, please do so. You know where to find us. Go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. Until then, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Maserati Marcus, and there's Maserati Mason. Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good night, y'all.